30 years or so and brought about the kind of modernization in education in the early 1990s that was as advanced as any you'll find anywhere in the country. So my hat's off to you, and thank you for your leadership. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. I am a recovering hedge fund partner. I've been in recovery for about 18 months. But I'm on a kind of methadone program. As soon as I retired or went into recovery, I set up a company called Hanover Investment Group. And we are involved in a number of direct venture investments in water and medical record keeping and pharmaceuticals, specialty pharmaceuticals, and a media technology company. But we also are advisors to a group of Asian asset managers. They manage about north of $500 billion. And they are a group of men that I met in the years I worked as a partner for one of the country's top global hedge funds, Tudor Investment Corporation. And these men have been concerned for a very long time about the evolution of policy and particular fiscal sustainability in the United States. While I was working at Tudor, I had to travel all around the world. And these men were some of the people I met. I've been in every central bank and every legislature and every finance ministry in about every country of significance that you can quickly call to mind. And over those 15 years or so that I was doing that work, my responsibilities to my partners as we were managing $15 to $20 billion of other people's money and our own was to try to get a sense of what policies these other countries were pursuing that was creating real sustainable value. And what I learned was that we were losing value. We were losing competitiveness steadily during the 1990s and into the early 2000s. We were buying lots of other people's stuff, but they were not buying what we were producing. It's really pretty simple. There can be complex discussions about exchange rates and NAFTA deals and all this, but what it really comes down to is whose people are producing things that other people want or need, and who is not. And we were steadily losing competitiveness. And as I talked to people in Singapore and South Korea and Shanghai and elsewhere, it became very clear that where we were losing competitiveness was in what we were doing with respect to human capital. About 7 or 8 years ago, Art Rolnick, who was the fellow at the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis, who calculated the internal rate of return, the investment return on quality pre-kindergarten, found it to be 15% or something. And another gentleman by the name of Jim Heckman, who got a Nobel Prize in economics and who also was one of those people who had pulled together all the information with respect to early childhood investments, prenatal to 5, not just pre-kindergarten, found that the economic returns for these various programs range from 5 to 15% forever. This is not something you invest in the short term. This pays off for a very long period of time. Well, Jim and Art and I had been talking, and others, as a group of people who have been exploring, what is it that the United States could invest in that could restore our competitiveness? We could see very clearly that you could not continue to run an economy for very long with debt increasing at 8% and GDP increasing at 3%. there was a point at which those two lines were going to diverge, and then one of them would have to collapse. And it did. It started in 2007, and it collapsed totally and utterly in 2008. But in 2003, Jim Heckman and Art Rolling and I had a discussion, and we essentially in that discussion eliminated energy, information technology, healthcare, the environment, as areas that we ourselves could focus on as a way to get the country back on its feet again, to end this steady divergence and dependence on debt to keep the economy going. Both Art and Jim, less so me, I'm not that kind of person. I'm kind of a talker to people, a kind of bumblebee. I travel from flower to flower, so to speak. They had done the work, and it was very clear that human capital is where our attention should be. And within human capital development, the earliest years matter most. So I formed something called the Invest in Kids Working Group. People started meeting monthly in my office in Washington, at the office of Tudor Investment Corporation. We met monthly, and we were looking at a wide range of topics. We looked at the microeconomics, nurse-family partnerships, quality pre-kindergarten, what are the economic returns from reducing low birth weight babies, housing, all kinds of things. These are the microeconomics. And we examined questions about, well, what happens if you aggregate all of these early childhood investments? What does it mean for national job creation and economic growth? We looked at a question that very few people ask. Toyota's here. You have a sense of something called the automobile industry. All of you. Any one of you, if I ask you, can you tell me a few words about the agriculture sector? Every one of you can say a few words about the agricultural sector. Finance, all of you are experts on it now after 2008. But if I ask you, well, what about the sector that produces tuned in, relaxed, ready for work 18-year-olds? You don't have a concept of it. You don't have a concept of something called the youth human capital sector. This sector of the economy that actually raises our workforce. The fourth area that the Invest in Kids Working Group was working in was finance. If all of this stuff makes sense, how do you pay for it? And the fifth area was advocacy. Well, very quickly, we found we had a couple $1 million worth of research to do. Yes, it was okay for some of us to write checks and kind of get things going, but we really needed an actual platform. People came and said, oh, we'll do it this way, you need to set up a 501c3, and very fortunately for me, Pew Charitable Trusts came, the person of Sarah Watson, the director of the Partnership for American Economic Success, and she said, Rob, we get what you're talking about, that nobody's in charge. This Invest in Kids Working Group grew from 5 people in 2003 to over about 1,500 in the space of about 20 months. So in many respects, Dave, I have absolutely no doubt that Kevin's idea about involving seniors, you don't have to worry about a trickle. You're going to have to worry about a flood. Because as soon as the doors are opened on this, and seniors in Generations United, and once they begin their work in this state, you will be able to get retiring teachers, firemen, policemen, healthcare providers. They will be volunteering on a major scale, because to recycle all of that human experience that you as a grandparent now recycle back to your grandchildren. You do it naturally, you do it eagerly, and the same thing is going to happen nationally if we create the channel for it to be done. So the experience of the Invest in Kids Working Group and its very rapid growth, and then the Pew Charitable Trust coming and saying, listen, we get it. Nobody's in charge. Each state does what they're doing. Different scientists do what they're doing. People working in different research areas do what they're doing. And it took off. The partnership, as you may know, is now active, quite active in 9 states. It is the total number of places that we're supporting and providing information, guidance, technical assistance, and the rest is about 25 states. And I'm told that there are a number of states that are watching us like hawks and copying us, and we're delighted to. They're downloading. Rob was telling me literally thousands of brochures that we put on our website, some of which are in your materials, are being downloaded all over the country. But that's what the partnership is intended to do. It is purely a partnership to achieve one thing: to maximize the life success of every American kid. That's the first thing. Second is, in doing that, this is what we call the Telluride Standards, which were a set of standards developed by a group of business people in a series of meetings in Telluride, Colorado over the last 5 years. First one is maximize the life success of every kid. The second, involve parents and families. That's the second. Third, best evidence. Fourth, performance evaluation. And fifth, scalability. So the programs that Rob and I pursue in Virginia, we can compare with what you guys are doing in Connecticut, learn from it, and improve what we're doing in Virginia. Okay, that's the partnership. Some people ask me, okay, I get it. I want to be involved with the partnership, but come on. What do you really stand for? What's the budget is the number one problem in the country. Taxes is the number one issue. We know things that have to change. Where do you guys stand on that? And the answer is very simple, and it took about 1.5 years and involved discussions, business people and policy people involved in the partnership, and hundreds of providers. About 1,000 people went into stating the values of the Partnership for America's Economic Success. And they are, on this small piece of paper, that everything we do in government, public or private, state or federal, should be consistent with 5 ideas. The first is that human capital is the most important priority. The first is that the economy is kind of like a jet plane. It sits on a runway. It's material, it's wires, it's engineering, it's plastic, it's fabrics, all of this stuff. But whatever it is that's going to get the plane off the ground is the young adult human capital in its tanks. Without that young adult capital, we can't get this jet plane off the ground, back up above clouds, above the storms, competitive the way we should be. Second, if you're going to produce human capital, best place, focus on the early years. Start early. Third, is evaluation. Everything government does should have goals and should be performance evaluated. In no instance do we not know what we're doing and then evaluate whether we did it. Fourth is transparency, so that every one of you in this room, every taxpayer everywhere, can find out where the money comes from and where it goes. Where the money comes from and where it goes. The last is sustainability. Nothing that's done at the federal level, nothing that's done in Virginia, nothing that's done in Kentucky is done without an assurance that it can be done for decades. No promises that we can't keep. No need for leaky bucket discussions. We know in advance what we're doing, why we're doing it, and then we check and make sure we've actually done it. Now, why should we do this? Why is it that we are where we are? What is it about this human capital question that's so troublesome? The Defense Department is the only institution that has thoroughly studied young adult human capital in the United States. And many of you are nodding, you know the numbers that are coming.